Now, they're the latest in wearable tech and they're flying off the shelf, but should we be thinking twice before buying Meta glasses? The devices incorporate an AI assistant in eyeglasses, allowing the wearer to play music, answer calls, and even translate conversations. They also allow for recording of photos and videos. So, what are the implications of Meta glasses? To take us through this, we're talking now to Professor Dali Kaafar, Executive Director of Macquarie University Cybersecurity Hub. Welcome to ABC News. Thank you for joining us. Firstly, Professor Kaafar, how much of a game changer are Meta glasses compared to other forms of wearable tech and smartphones?
I think it's an escalation in terms of technology in many different ways, Miriam. I think we knew about, these as a pair of glasses that look like any ordinary type of other glasses. But there's a camera inside, as you mentioned. There's also an AI built in. And so you can take photos, videos, hands-free, but you can also live stream and increasingly just talk to them, right? Asking questions, asking what you're looking at, translating any sign in front of you and the likes. And that's obviously very, very genuinely actually really good, valuable use cases for most users. And for someone, for instance, with a vision or hearing impairment, this is obviously and potentially a life-changing type of technology. And they're also going mainstream fast, right? So we know that these cameras are sold now by the millions, and so you can already buy camera glasses, for the price of a cheap pair of sunglasses. But I think the essential thing to understand is they look like normal glasses, but there's a camera in there, and there's maybe even more of a game changer here, the fact that there is an AI embedded sitting there on someone's faces. And, pretty much you can record conversations all day long, and you can tap in to take these photos, but also to get a sense of what you're looking at. So the AI is powerful there.
So how does that sit alongside, our privacy laws and regulation? And what might that potentially mean for people, in order to protect themselves when they're out and about in public?
Yeah, so that's I guess the main point here, right? And the main point of concern is the fact that now all of a sudden we have this capability to get a continuous log of a person's day in, what probably constitutes the most sensitive data set that you could design. And so I'd say the main concerns really sit in few different problems, right? The first is obviously this idea of privacy and consent. The moment that this camera points outward, people that are being recorded are pretty much everyone around you as you're wearing these. And so, almost every scenery that is out there potentially is subject to, a consent problem. And I think the consent problem is on the wrong person. So it's not really about the person who uses this technology and the person who wears these glasses. Is about everyone else in the frame, that is not giving their consent or never really agreed to anything like the recording. So with this technology and with these glasses, there's a little recording light, but you can find online all sort of tutorials about how to disable them, by the way. And so, it's very easily kind of turned off. And it means nothing to a stranger walking past. So that's more on the privacy and the consent side of things. But then as there is an AI side of it to the technology, these aren't just cameras. They're really an input pipeline for an AI process. And so a face that the glasses is capturing can be matched against databases to identify a total stranger. There's even like a little and relatively recent research that was done where two students have demonstrated that you can literally pair these glasses with a face search software, and you can literally pull a stranger's name, their home address within seconds, right? And that's obviously a concern when it comes to the facial recognition capability of these glasses. And I guess the third one, which is also very important to us here in particular in Australia, this view of the data and where the data goes and the possibility or the likelihood, in fact, of data breaches happening. So that storage footage doesn't just sit there, in the safety of the devices. They essentially are stored in the cloud very often. And as we've seen with every other major sort of breach in this country, unfortunately, anything that is collected and stored eventually leaks. And so here we have this massive threat or massive sort of concern about this data, often in a few years' time potentially being leaked, and that can materialize in all sort of other threats like scams and fraud being used against the individuals who have been recorded, for instance.
Professor Dali Kaafar with Macquarie University, it's been a pleasure to have you with us here on ABC News. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Miriam.